What is up, guys? This is Alex from First of Figures.
Hey everyone, this is Chuckles.
How you guys doing? Very excited to show you Breath of the Wild Link! Yay! We've been working on Link for a long time. It would have started maybe 6 months ago, I would say.
But it's definitely fast.
No, actually, what am I talking about? It's even longer. I can it was sort of in July time.
Right.
It was just after licensing show that we started working on this. And it's been a really big roller coaster to sort of go from the idea of just starting to make this in time for the Breath of the Wild game launch.
Yeah, because everyone was like on the edge of a seat whether it's going to be launched on this on the correct time or not, or whether it's going to be delayed till summer. I remember
there was about localization or what have you.
Yeah,
there was some issues, but we got here in the end, and hey, finally, and it's really our great pleasure to be able to just go through this and to give you a bit more background about the making of Link and what we did and some of the design choices that we had, and obviously take some questions from you guys as well. So without further ado, let's have a look at what's on the table. How many pieces have we got here, Chocks?
Oh, slightly over 50 pieces.
So, I mean, what you can see here, guys, is really, it's almost like a 3D jigsaw puzzle. The thing about this is, it's quite different from our previous documentaries that we made, because all the previous documentaries we've done, and if you haven't seen them, do check them out. They're all on our resin statues that we've made.
Right.
And this is the first time that we're doing a documentary on a PVC thing. And they are quite fundamentally different, even though maybe from a distance you can look at both of them and say, hey, that's just a statue. But actually, there is a huge difference between the different versions,
right.
Resin or PVC, and we're going to sort of go through a bit of sort of the fundamental difference between the two. One of the things that you can see is because, you know, typically for our resins there may be 3 or 4 pieces, right? Three or 4 or 5 pieces, but look how many there are here. As you said, just over 50. So it's really crazy in comparison, but they all serve a purpose and they all go through different things, and we can explain that in quite more detail a little bit later on.
So we'll talk about like from like a to Z kind of thing, like how did things start from a 2D concept to a 3D, and then breaking it down into different pieces.
That's right.
And then becoming to this black and white, grayed out piece.
Yep.
And then eventually to the color one. On
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, there is definitely a lot of different aspects to going into making a PVC over a resin, and each one really needs to be fine-tuned, needs to be really slowly gone through each process to make sure that the quality remains there in the final piece and it gets translated, and that all starts from the beginning.
Yep.
You know, the thing about PVC is you can actually make so many of them so quickly that what that means is if you haven't really done your prep work beforehand, it really means that it's very easy for it to go quite wrong quite quickly. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I kind of liken it to like you have a river and you're on one bank of the river, and across the other side is a target. Or maybe even you can consider a dart board, and you're holding a dart. Once you let go of that dart, or once you push that boat with no sails, nothing, right? You sort of push it towards the other side of the bank, and you have a target for that. You really don't have too much control. The whole point at the beginning is to really align it, and to really make sure that you aim it true, so when you actually do let go, or when you push that boat, it hits where you want it to hit. And of course there's some deviations, but of course it's got to be within the realm of acceptability. That is the reason, that sort of mindset really has led to the separation of so many parts. And that is really going to be explained a bit more in detail, but this is why we're sitting here, 51 pieces. It's all about what do we do when we push that. And why do I say you don't have any control? Well, there's a fundamental difference between making something like a PVC versus something like a resin. Now, a resin may be typically between, I don't know, 500 to 1,500, 2,000, whatever it may be, and that's pretty straightforward. It's a situation where you each one is individually checked. You look at it one by one, and you know, any faults that you can see, you can really sort of begin to see them quite early on, and you can make some changes on the production line. Hey, that bit needs to be tweaked, that bit needs to be tweaked, etc. It's a total different ballgame when we're talking about tens of thousands of pieces.
When it's mass produced in that kind of numbers.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with, you know, that's absolutely right. So bearing that in mind, why don't we jump into one of our first questions, which I believe is asking about the fundamental differences between that.
Okay.
So do you want to talk a bit about where do these questions come from?
for those guys that's just joining us right now, first time they're watching this video, basically we have a collectors club on Facebook, First Figures Official Collectors Club, and when we decide to make a documentary, we always post a thread in the club where we ask the members of the team, the members in the club, questions of concerns or questions or queries they have with regards to that documentary. So a couple of weeks ago, I posted a thread which said we're making a Breath of the Wild link, the PVC, and a lot of our members are resin collectors, so it'd be quite interesting from their perspective how we make and how we produce these PVC statues. So again, we created a thread, and then the questions are already asked in there, and then we basically just gathered all these questions and then create this documentary for you. And somewhere in that thread there will be a random post which would ask fellow members to give us a shout out, so Alex will again follow that up with a shout out back at them. So if you have a question for our future documentaries, please make sure to sign into our collectors club, and then be on the lookout for these questions and these posts when we do a documentary.
Absolutely. Yeah. Should we kick off with Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah.
All right, then let's jump down to Kevin Morgan. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how does the overall production time compare to the average resin piece?
So what we were sort of talking about and sort of getting into. So the average resin piece, as I said, is probably over about three to 4 months, where you can make between 500 to 1,500 to 2,000, something like that, typically between the regular and the exclusive. Now, again, this whole idea of throwing the dart, pushing the thing, because the way it works, resin is done through something called silicone molds. So what you do is you have a piece, it could be the shield, whatever it is, you cast it in silicone. You then open up the silicone mold, and then you reuse it about, 50 times, maybe 100 times before the quality starts degrading, where the silicone mold is sort of warped over time. So when you get a piece out, it's all deformed, and that's something when you say, hey, that piece is not accepted. Also, we need to remake the silicone mold. So you go back to the original tooling master, you recreate another silicone mold, boom, done. And silicone molds are very, very cheap. It's just silicone. Straightforward. This is a whole new ball game. This is a whole nother ball game. This is done through steel molds. So what does that mean? Well, steel molds, and typically just to go into it, that resin sort of thing typically takes, I'd say an average about maybe 30, maybe a minute to cast one. That's just the casting it, but taking it out and all that sort of stuff, I would say it'd probably take about probably about 2 minutes. If you're constantly looking at it, I would say. For steel molds, that's completely different. Steel molds have the ability to inject 20 seconds, 30 seconds, depending on how much material is needed. Now, this was actually created with something like 7 steel molds, and each steel mold you can fit, maybe, for instance, this was one steel mold, including all the ABS stuff and some of the PVC. We can go a bit more into that, between the PVC and ABS. And that's why it's split into so many pieces, therefore you have to have quite a lot of different molds. Now, the different molds allow us, with these injection molds, allow you to just literally gong out. It takes 20 seconds later, take it out. And the speed of which that happens is incredibly fast. I believe the daily running rate of injection for Link was 1,500 pieces a day. I think that obviously you need some time for the machine to warm up. But once the machine is warmed up and people are in the flow, 1,500 per day. Can you imagine what that means? It means 10 days, 15,000, 20 days, 30,000. You get the idea. Which is incredible. Yeah. Bearing in mind we were doing 500 to 1,000, to 2,000 for the resin, which takes three to 4 months. Of course, it goes beyond just simply casting. Obviously, it includes the painting, but those are the sort of levels that you can achieve in a PVC to create in the same amount of time. If you compare it to a resin, where you're doing maybe 2,000 pieces, you could easily do 40 to 50,000 without breaking a sweat over a 3 to 4 month period, easily. Now, that is why I said it's very easy to make. So it's very easy to have a problem becoming, even the smallest problem. Yeah. So a problem, no matter how small, when times by 40,000 pieces, becomes a huge problem. So it's really important to try your best to make sure that when you start the injection process, that all the due diligence and all the preparation is done in such a way that basically means that there aren't those problems.
That's true. So with those steel molds you were talking about,
Yeah.
do they degrade over time as compared to the
You
silicon?
know, we're talking maybe 200,000 pieces.
Yeah.
It depends on the quality of the steel that you use. There are all these variations of which you can do. But yeah, you know, 200,000 pieces, it's good for that. Maybe something like this, which is the biggest piece, maybe not as much.
Right.
And then you would then go ahead to recreate that mold if that's what you needed to do. There's not 200,000 of these, so that's not an issue right now. But you know, if that does become an issue, hey,
Yeah.
shout out to you guys for buying so many.
Ooh, it's worth making another one just for that. if it
Well,
goes over,
absolutely,
yeah.
of course. So you know, in terms of the timing, it's incredibly quick compared to resin. That's for Kevin.
No, cool. Alright. So, should we start from the beginning?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so next question from a Gerardo Oliveras. Is it possible to create the PVC line so that different statues together recreate iconic scenes from the game, or is every figure going to be based on official artwork only?
So we're very receptive of people in the club sort of giving their opinion on what they like to see. So very happy for you guys to let us know in the club if that's something you like to see, more sort of iconic dioramas of people fighting together. It's definitely something we can entertain. From the beginning onwards, though, it has really been sort of based off of official art.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's basically what I would say about that. I'm very happy to entertain. We're very happy to hear what people have to say about that. And with us sort of going into this PVC line, and we sort of kind of went into that with Link versus Servo, just a sort of certain amount, but it definitely allows for us to have more, at this scale, to have more freedom in creating those dioramas. Before, for our resins, it was inherently too difficult because of the overwhelming size.
Sure.
A 1/4 scale Zelda piece, you can't really have it in its own standalone diorama. It becomes a bit too out of reach in terms of size and execution. Hey, PVC is a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
Definitely things that we could look into. And hey, feel free to come and join the club to give us some opinions on what you like to see.
Alright, cool. Thank you very much, Gerardo. Next question from Miranda Sykes. PVC figures, especially in the Japanese market, are commonly anywhere from 1/4 to 1/10 in scale. What was the driving point in your decision for Link's scale?
So that's quite straightforward. We worked
So
with.
let's start off. This is going to be a 10-inch scale.
Sure.
Yeah, 10-inch.
It's 10 inch in size.
10-inch in size. Sorry, yes.
In terms of scale, I'm not really too focused on what the Japanese scales are or what have you. They have quite a lot of different sizes,
Yeah.
typically a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
What I would say is...
1/7, 1/8.
Something like that. But also what I would say is, you know, Link himself is typically a smaller character in the game world. So if you take if you're going to say a 1/6 scale average man, it's going to be 12 inches.
That's right, yeah.
But because Link is he's an elf, he's typically a smaller character in the game, it would make sense for him to be smaller, let's say 10 inches, and therefore still be considered 1/6,
Sure.
because a 1/6 character should be 1.8 meters, i.e. 12 inches. But that's not what he is in the game world, I believe, because you know he's usually quite a shorter character. In terms of, what was Miranda asking? It's driving point of size, yeah.
Why did
So
you choose this size?
we worked before with Together Plus, who originally established a size going beforehand, and that was the Twilight Princess Link and Ganondorf, and the Skyward Sword Servo and Link, and that really was the driving decision in terms of the actual size, because it really made sense for it to be in the same scale as those. Consistency. So that was pretty straightforward.
Alright, cool. Hopefully that answers your question, Miranda. Next question from a Cat Watt. What have you learned from this process, making your first major PVC item that you're keen to use on the next one?
So what might surprise quite a lot of people, especially outside of the club, it's a bit more common knowledge inside the official Collectors Club on Facebook, so guys, do check it out there. Is that we actually have quite a history of dealing with PVCs, or should I say plastic statues, or PVC statues. Going back from making sort of collector's edition mini PVC statues that went with some games, and actually I can say, if you're Zelda fans, you may actually be aware of the Skull Kid that was with the Majora's Mask for the 3DS re-release, and also for the Wind Waker on the Wii U HD remaster. Those are the Ganondorf. And those were created by us, and we learn a lot through that, and there's been some other projects as well that we've done in PVC. Those are just some Zelda examples. And also, as I said, some experience with the Together Plus lines. But what I would say is definitely the experience from that has helped to lead to this. And I'm very happy to say I feel this is one of our best pieces to date in terms of our PVC line.
Sure.
And there was definitely a lot of things that I had learned from those projects to apply to this. And one of the things is this. So many different parts, so many different pieces. And some of the things, of course, is how do we do it so that we make sure that the quality is there? Now, the separation of the parts is really going to explain a bit more about why they've been separated in so many pieces. Why, you ask, Chuckles?
Why?
Oh, right. Okay, so, well, you should ask.
Yes.
Well, actually, when they come out on spruces like this. And they sort of come out like this, sort of injection pieces. You can see here what we've got are the top of some of the arrows. You guys can see that. You've got some of the arrows, which you can see are over here. Okay, you can see that there. And you can see the quiver. It's an example, you can see the quiver. And here is his band. If you can have a look at his sort of bandage from this one over here. Yeah. Or it might actually be this one over here.
That one,
so it's this one over here, guys. Okay. Now, what's interesting is you can see, as an example, there. This one is, for example, this bit over here. Do you want to pick that up here?
Yep, the collar.
Yeah, the collar. Now, what's interesting is that they all come like that. So you can actually see the base. It comes from these spruces. You can sort of pop them off, etc., etc.
If you guys aware of the model kits, it's kind of like that, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. It's exactly like
the
that.
Model kits.
Now, what you're going to notice is that we try to avoid painting lines when they can be separated into pieces. So, as an example, this bit here, as you saw, was one piece. Now, this bit here, which is the what is it? It's the hand, the guard. Now, this is a separate piece that was really easy to paint. All we needed to do was simply paint it all brown. Boom, 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 paint it brown. Then, using tempo printing, add the details on the top to make it a little bit more, to add the pattern on there. Then, we add this, and we simply attach it to the top, as so. Now what you're going to get there is a very, very clean line between the brown and the beige of the arm wraps. Now that is something that allows for us to make it super quick, because if we had that attached, and we've done this mistake in the past, where we've had that attached, it leads to overspray, it leads to messy brown lines going onto the beige wraps. It leads to all of those. Now, the time that it takes to paint that one brown, paint that the beige, and attach it, and not have to worry about the quality about that line because it's been separated, the saving on that time is astronomical. Now that allows for us to therefore make the pieces so quickly yet maintain the quality, and that's why it's so important to think about these things at the beginning stage. We talked about aiming the dart, pushing the boat. That's what it's all about.
Having everything set out from the first instance.
This whole thing is full of those examples. Chocks, what do you see here?
The sword and the sheath.
You see the sword and the sheath. You see that? Now, what do you notice at the bottom? What do you notice is missing?
It's missing the protector at the bottom.
There you go. And the protector is simply a single color Yes, it's got a little bit of sort of, you know, it's just a single color that you put on there. You spray painted that sort of silver kind of rusted metal effect.
Yeah.
Boom. Here is the grey. Here is the brown sword. Attach that. Bob's your uncle. As long as you sort of assemble that closely, you now have a perfectly painted tip and sheath that therefore allows for us to do that action very, very quickly. Boom, boom, done. None of this, oh, I need to make sure that that line is perfectly lined. You don't have to worry about that. It's all done. And that's really another example of why we've done those separations. And there are tons of examples. Chocks, why don't you sort of have a look about that? How do we do the head going into the neckline?
Oh yeah, I mean, straight away, we mainly concentrated on the face, the scope. So the sculptor, the designer could also concentrate on the eyes as well. For example, the temple printing, so that she doesn't have to worry about anything else down the neck down onwards. So again, so this is going to be, we're talking about this, right? Or the hairline?
Well, both. Well, all of it, the whole thing.
Yeah. So this is going to be straightforward. It's like,
because you know what it's like. You know, on a resin, if you have a skin tone and the
resin
body.
is totally different, because resin, everybody wants as less pieces as possible.
Absolutely.
But PVC is different. It's much easier to break this down, concentrate on one part, and another part will be, once this is also another temple printing on the collar, and then just once this is done, once both pieces are done, it's kind of just slot that in. Obviously, I can't do this properly here, but the experienced workers up in China will be able to.
Well, what actually happens there is the workers. If you watch if you guys haven't seen it, check out our behind the scenes Breath of the Wild going down the production line. You'll be able to see that the workers need to sort of keep it in a heated kind of
it's
like a mini oven
made up of it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the heat so it makes this more pliable.
That's right.
Much more softer and pliable, because right now it's quite cold in here, but these will become quite solid, stiff. So
that's right. So it allows them more malleable. But again, it talks about that. We talk about the whole idea of this part being separated to go into the main body. So that sort of slots in like that. Again, you know, it would need to be if it was colder. And then this then gets slotted into here. Get the right, get slotted in as well. That whole idea means you don't need to worry about that line, that line, that line. But in a resin, you would probably most likely have to worry about painting everything, the neckline, making sure that the collar line was okay, the skin tone was okay, all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that you sort of you mentioned, but I just want to sort of go on about again, is talking about tempo printing. And I want to talk about spray painting, and I want to talk about the comparison to resins. Resin, 9 times out of 10, everything that you see here would be normally seen is hand painted. Maybe for some of the logos would be using a decal. And the reason why that varies very differently from PVC is that PVC uses a process called tempo printing, which basically is a machine that comes along and it stamps the thing, and that becomes one part of the eye. So for example, if you look at the eye here, you have blues and you have gradiated blues and you have a black and you have a white. These sort of dots on the eyes and what have you, they're done by separate tempo printing processes. And the same thing for the dotted orange lines and the green dots. That's all none of that's done by hand. And all of the sort of details on the chest piece, all that sort of stuff, all of that is all being done by this tempo printing effect. Now, sure, I mean the shaker slab, just
the tablet
here. This is also, you can see the shield on that. All of those sort of details are done by this tempo printing method. Now, the tempo printing method plus spray molding. Now, what does spray molding mean? Well, spray painting is because when a PVC comes out of the injection, the steel mold, each piece comes out exactly the same. Now that allows you to create a steel mold, which basically it's like almost like a clip. You put it in like this and you cover it up, and all it will do, for example, if you look at this purple handle, it will cover up the crossguard, it will cover up the hilt, and it will just leave that area there. And that allows the worker to spray paint this side and that side very, very quickly. We're talking in matters of less than 10 seconds. 5 seconds, I would say. Timey chalks. That's sort of 5 seconds. To allow for them to do really cleanly and accurately spray molds to do that really quickly, really quick. Now, you do that in a resin, you need to make sure that those lines are perfectly done, and if it's not done, it's gone over, you're going to have to retouch that up.
If you've seen the production videos in the Collectors Club, you notice that a lot of the painters would have to use masking tape.
Masking tape is for spray painting, right? Or if you were to hand paint it, exactly right.
They basically they would have to mask that section out, top it out, and then spray paint it or whatever.
Exactly right. Yeah. But if you're going to hand paint it, again, it's the same idea. The point is, you're not going to get it done in how many? What was that? How long did I do? 5 seconds? You're not going to get it done in that time. Now, why can't you do that for resin? Well, you're asking me, Chocks. Well, I'll tell you, Chocks. And that's because resin has incredibly small variations because of pulling it. If you pull it out of the resin like this, the mold like this, we put it slightly out like that, or the time that you took to cure for the resin piece to be cured and pulled out of the thing, all leads to incredibly small deviations. But then they're not so small that actually you cannot create spray molds because they won't perfectly fit inside the spray mold because the spray molds are made of metal. So when this is always the same, boom, boom, metal, this is perfectly the right shape, you put it in, you cover it up, you spray it, done. You don't get that opportunity for resin. And that means you just can't do these spray molds, therefore you don't have the speed for it. That's the reality. And that's the reason why. When I looked at this, the thing about resin factories are that the workers are incredibly skilled, and they have to be, because they're all hand painted. It's a fundamental thing that they have to be at a certain level in order to be able to work in these types of factories, because you just have to have that level of skill. Now, the workers that are working in these types of factories, i.e. the PVC factories, don't actually need to be as highly skilled. Why? Because actually it's going through a process. It's a process where they have a spray mold, they put this in, they cover it, they spray paint it, 5 seconds, open it up, take it out, put it on, next. Rinse and repeat 10,000 times.
That's why 1,500 pieces can be done in a day because of that process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Exactly correct. And that is... So in order to allow for... So the speed of which you can produce these types of figures in a PVC factory is infinitely more, because the labor pool is much bigger, because the barrier to entry to be a skilled worker in those PVCs are much lower compared to those that are in the resins. And that's just the nature of the beast, because so many things are done mechanically. So for example, with the eyes, not one person has put a deco on the eye, has painted the eyes. All they've used is they've taken off the head, they put it on the machine, they push the button, and the machine does the head, they take it out, and then they put the next one on. That's how it works. And that's basically allowed for us to maintain the quality of the piece going through the production. And the sort of issues that you have that you can expect to encounter on a resin piece, you really don't see for the PVC piece, depending, and only depending, if you take away, and this is the key point, Chocks. Okay. Now that I know you're asking me about the key point, what's the key point, Alex? Well, I'll tell you what the key point is, Chocks. Do not let any PVC worker use their hands to paint it, because the quality will go downhill very quickly. And this is the example of what we've done by not allowing it, to make every single piece completely separate, to make sure that it's either, number one, tempo printed or spray painted. That is it. Everything you see here, none of it is hand painted. And that is the only way that you can do it, to maintain the integrity, to maintain the quality at such a quick number and big quantity, in such a quick time frame and quick quality, to maintain that quality. That's what you have to do. So everything that you see here, all these different parts, everything that you see here, none of that has been painted by hand. And some of the things are very intricate. Just have a look at this shaker tablet. We're talking details in the in the handle. You got the eye. You got your sort of lights within inside there. even on the back, which most people don't even see. You're looking at it now, aren't you?
Yeah,
You're going,
yeah.
Every single one of those things has been separated to be done in a way that the worker does not need to hand paint it. Now, of course, you may have some areas where when you spray paint it on, you didn't spray it long enough. And in that scenario, maybe you're going to have to hand paint touch up. But we're not talking about fundamental details added by hand. So when I was dealing with this, and this is some stuff that I learned from the past, I now go in and I speak to the engineers and I say, what piece needs to be hand painted? And they say this bit. I go, no, it's not. Separate it. And that is why we have over 50 pieces. Now, what's crazy is, of course, if you look at this, and here's an example, right? Most people will look at this base. We've got a pre-made base. Here, pre-made base, right? Most people look at this base and go, oh my god, how difficult is it to paint that? Make sure it's within the lines. Well, actually, it's not difficult at all. And you can see the reason why, because I said we need to separate this. So what you see is here, one piece. Originally it was black. We talked about, this is the original piece. Okay, comes out like that. Spray paint it so it's black, right? So this was just a test shot, right? But normally it comes out black. Spray paint it completely blue. That was just boom, completely spray painted blue. Then we followed up with that with having a tempo print, boom, on the black bit there. So the only thing that was added there is that black tempo print there. From there, this was completely black. In fact, it was injection black, and then we just spray painted all completely black. Then what happened was, actually this is quite interesting. The sides were actually painted, spray painted blue all the way around. So first of all, it was all painted black. Then they used a spray mold to spray all of the bottom part the same color blue, the same blue as that.
Right.
Then they used they used tempo printing to do the negative, i.e. leaving only the blue. And that's separated into like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like 6 or 8 times, 6 to 8 times going around there to just leave the blue from before. Now, if you can imagine people hand painting that in, you're not going to make that many pieces, and it's going to be it's going to be all over the shop. It's going to come in, it's going to come out. So that's how the side was done. And then, of course, for this part, all these pieces, as you can see, guys, are separated. So all you simply do is, I'm doing this from behind, boom. Now you can all see how that's been done. None of this, I've got to make sure that's a perfect triangle. Don't need to worry about that. That's all completely separated. And that's because, yes, we cut it out. Boom. And that is one of the tricks of how you do it so quickly, yet maintain the quality. So hopefully you guys, you understand that and how and what sort of went with that. Should we give it a bit of a spin?
Okay.
I believe that's answered Kat's question.
That answered quite a lot.
Quite a lot of questions in there, so.
Okay, so moving on.
Yeah.
Stacey Lynn, did you ever sit and try to figure out how Link carries those bulky arrows that obviously can't fit in his quiver?
So, what you can see here is, as you can see, that the tips of the it's not the tips, I should say, the arrow ends, the feathers, I would say, actually you don't see that in there. But of course, when you plonk those in, actually, to be clear, that actually goes into this bit here.
Little holder. This
is a little holder, and inside there's 3 little dots, and each 3 little dots is a representative of it fitting inside. As an example, you can see that is how one of them sits in there, and you have all 3 of them, and from there, that just simply gets slotted in, like so. So you can maintain that that these are fixed inside, and these are fixed inside, and that they don't go in too far. They're fixed, so they're never going to get some that go in more, some that come out more. That's the way to do it. So there are not any of these arrowheads in there at all. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
Okay. Harry Drumheller, what considerations had to be made when working with PVC compared to polystyrene?
Yeah, I sort of went through a lot of that already. So in terms of
just a quick top 3 considerations between each other?
Well, definitely the number 1 consideration is, I always say to the engineers, show me which part is hand painted, and then they show me and go, And that's a bit of a juggling act, because what happens there is, if you want to save on costs, you can make them in 3 molds. Sure, no problem. But that leads to all the issues of production afterwards. And 1 mold is quite expensive, $4,000 to $5,000 for 1 mold. Okay?
How many do you
At
use?
least 7.
Yeah.
Now I could have done it in 3, but if I did it in 3, would this be separate from this? The answer is no. Would this be separate in this? The answer is no. Would they have to hand paint this or do something? The answer is yes. And that's something that I absolutely wanted to avoid. Like, you won't believe that I said it makes more sense to invest in more molds, to have more separation.
Sure.
So every single time that they said, I asked them, how many, is there any hand painting involved? They said, yes, there is. I said, keep going.
We had the time constraint as well. We're racing against the time, racing against
Of course.
the clock because of the launch of the game time. Because
Of course.
this is like the very first time we actually released the product at the same time as the launch game.
Really feel very
Yes,
proud of us.
definitely,
We had to do
yeah.
that. That was some crazy months to get that
And
done.
we've got to consider the Chinese New Year, which the factory's closed for a month. So
Yeah.
we did a great job of actually meeting that target. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm
And
not going to argue with
obviously,
their
if you didn't have any experience with PVCs beforehand, we still
Can you imagine there'll be some
here.
production nightmares
Yeah.
going on right now, and I'll be pulling my hair out. Oh, wait a sec.
All right, cool. All right. Next question from a Christina Maria. Marie, what made you guys want to create this pose for the PVC?
So, what I wanted to sort of discuss about that is the pose for the PVC is. This is quite iconic based on the images that you can see. The game has not come out, therefore the choice has been very limited.
But
Now,
by the time this video comes out, it should be on the same day, I believe.
oh, that's a whole nother.
So hopefully you guys will be watching this and playing the game at the same time, understanding why we chose this pose and etc. etc.
Absolutely, and that really goes back to the whole point that there wasn't so many choices at the time because the game hadn't actually been released. We couldn't sort of research, and we can only use the small amounts of trailers that we could do. In fact, I can remember halfway through the development process, another trailer dropped because we saw only the sort of E3 trailer, and then another trailer dropped around about January the 12th, which allowed us to actually make some more changes, some more fine-tuning, all that sort of stuff. And that's what we've been basing all of our stuff on, really small snippets. We've been poring over those, looking at those, how do the eyes look? What's the best way it's supposed to be done? A lot of research went into that, so it took a long time to sort of get that right.
And Nintendo's been very helpful, a lot of back and forth with feedback, because obviously a lot of the the Pantone colors, etc. We needed Nintendo's help on that aspect as well. So because they obviously wanted this product to be out on the same time as the game title launch.
That's
so
right.
It's been very helpful in that aspect.
That's right. Yeah. So and this basically was the coolest pose, no doubt. No doubt. The sort of kinetic energy in there, the sort of dynamism in there as well, sort of really lends itself to this sort of pose.
Right, cool. All right, next question from Dan Bond. How did you reinforce the figure in terms of gravity? Yeah, that's one of my questions I was going to ask you as well.
Okay, so what I wanted to discuss a bit about that is the inherent nature of plastic. Now, plastic can be separated into 2 things. One is PVC and one is ABS. Now, PVC, when people see these things, they usually say that it sort of bends over time, PVC, and this is a very, very dynamic pose. And a lot of...
Can you quickly explain what's the difference between a PVC?
Oh, will do, sure. And PVC is quite malleable. We talked a bit about that time where they were in the oven in order to allow us to put it in there because it becomes softer. And in traditionally sort of warmer temperatures, we said it was a little bit colder here, but in warmer temperatures at the moment in the summer, PVC has a sort of nasty habit of bending over time, unless you do certain things. And what we've done here is used ABS. Now, ABS is the kind of plastic that you see that's quite hard. It snaps quite easily if it's thin. So this is use of ABS. You can sort of you can kind of maybe say, like, let's say your alarm clock is usually sort of made of this ABS material. And PVC is inherently more about capturing sort of finer detail, it has that sort of softer feel to it. You could call it soft plastic, hard plastic. But the actual terminology is PVC for this sort of thing. You can see here, if I give a squeeze to this, you can see a movement there, right? If I do that, you can see that sort of squeeze. There's no way that you can do that with ABS. ABS, this sort of small, thin material, snap, break, easily will break. So look, you can drop that, no problem. ABS in this sort of size, I'd be hesitant to do that. So because of the nature of the product, it needs to be shipped all over the world, drop test, etc., etc. ABS in thin material becomes very, very brittle. However, ABS when it's thick, like so, Chocks, show us your Superman strength and break that.
Oh yeah, I might break my thumb and finger here. Yeah, it's very strong.
Very strong. You're not going to be breaking that anytime soon.
This is one of the reasons why we requested that.
This is so important to have, and here you go guys, a mixture between ABS and PVC, but this is what do you see this anywhere, Chocks, on the model?
Do I see it anywhere? No,
Can you see it?
You can't see it.
No, why can't you see it?
Because it's hidden.
Because it's an internal skeleton. It's an internal ABS thing that has been inserted into PVC leg. Now, this is the PVC piece here, okay? And it's been inserted, so I'll leave this here. This is the PVC part. And this is the boot. Now, this boot has also been made in ABS. So for your reference, guys, here are the examples. I've got a transparent one here for you. This is from the test shot. This is a example of ABS. Chocks.
I know.
Jesus.
You can tell. You can immediately
tell the difference. So this one is not. This one is not ABS because yes.
Yeah.
So
one's much more softer.
Yeah, you can see that one on your right hand here, the coloured one here, is this one over here. There is no structural necessity for that to be hard. So it's in that it's in that PVC. Okay. Now, this one here is a fundamental important point here. This is a very important point here, which is the part that gets inserted into the base in order to make sure that this doesn't lean over time. Now, this is made of ABS. We talked about this really hard material. It's not thin, it's really thick. Now, at the bottom of it is a kind of like a kind of groove. Can you see that sort of thing there?
Yeah.
Now, what you have here is you have one part, and that's you have one part here and one part here. That in it is a recess. Now, that allows for us to put one part like that. It's like two parts of a jigsaw puzzle, and then have another part like that. That is then glued together and is then sonic welded. Now, what does sonic welding mean? Well, if you look at your iPhone or your phones, generally there is a line, or maybe your phone charger, there's this really, really thin line in between things, but actually they're two separate pieces that have been used. Sonic welding, kind of sound ability, sound kind of welding thing that basically makes that super assembled and sort of, it's not glued together, but it's using sonic welding. It's almost like, it's amazing. If you see your phone charge and you go down it, it makes it really, really tight. So if you go back and you have a look at this one here, right? This again hasn't been sonic welded yet, but if you look at this one, yeah, you'll basically go and see, Chocks, can you see there's a sort of gap in between the two pieces there?
Gap there?
Now, how do you see the gap between that? You can still see, you can always still see the gap,
but always see the line, but it's much more tighter.
Much tighter. Yeah. So that's absolutely correct. So we're going back to this. We have, this is what you can see here, but let's be a bit more clear with the separated pieces here. So you have this part here, which is now making the assumption sonic welded here, right? Okay. So we talked about the connection between this, which is the jumping bit, right? The peg there, with the really strong ABS leg as well. Those, we've covered that. The connection between these two, solid. Now we need to talk about the connection between this piece and the base. So if we reassemble this base very quickly. So here we go, guys. Put that in there. Hey, look at that, guys. I painted it so quickly. Now, what you see here are two holes. Now, what are these two holes? Hi, Chocks. You can see you there, right? These two holes here. You can see against that. Those two holes go into this. They have two little pegs or holes here that gets inserted. Now, of course, this gets inserted into that, like so. Okay, you with me so far, Chops?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Underneath that, we have the base here, and the base here goes directly on top. And you can see in the base there are still two holes here. Maybe you can see those there. Okay. Now ignore the holes going around. Ignore the holes going around the edges. Okay. These ones here. No, don't need to worry about those. You assemble this directly on top here. Like so. I believe. Right. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Then in there are two areas here. So right now, that's still separated. But what you do is once you put that in, you add your two screws here, plus the screws going around here, and that is how you connect it to the bottom of the base. Now you see a screw here, there are 4 screws here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you'll see actually 2 covers, because we didn't want to have the screws showing there. We actually went ahead and covered those 2 screw holes. We didn't need to, it doesn't do any difference, but we added the 2 screw covers there. You see that, Chocks? They're actually covered there. So that allows for it to be now really securely attached from to the base. Now I'm pretty sure that once the screws are on there, you push that forward, that's going nowhere, Chocks. That's not going to go anywhere. So now that we've established that there's a strong connection between the ABS, remember this is all ABS now. So there's no PVC here. There's nothing that's going to go bend over time in terms of a hot climate. Now we talk about the internal skeleton. Now this part is inserted here. Now we're still talking about PVC legs going on the ABS skeleton. So we have the ABS skeleton here. Now this actually, you see the curve? Can you see the curve here, Chocks? Going on the
knee area.
On the knee. Ah, there you go, mate.
Yeah.
Jumping the gun there. On the knee area. You can see the bend in the knee.
Yeah.
Takes into the, goes over the knee. Then again, remember this. Oh, silly me. There is a boot cover here. I believe it's this one here.
It should be.
Now this one goes over there. So we have the boot cover. You see that, guys? Okay, you've got the boot cover there. Remember, guys, there is no screws in there right there. Okay, sorry about that. It could have been a bit. Right. Once we've got that, this goes over the top. And now you have something, assuming that this has got sonic welding on it, it's been glued, it's been assembled,
it's been
screwed in.
Screwing, tighten up, there's more balance.
Boom! PVC 101. Class dismissed. So, Dan, I hope that answers your question, and hopefully that alleviates any fears you may have that this will start drooping over time.
Exactly. Alright, another question from Dan.
Yo!
How will you go about defectives? Will the customer have to go through the retailer they bought from, or will you be supplying any support? Because obviously, you guys might not know, this product is, again, for the mass market. We released it into the out in the world, in the retailer. You're not able to pre-order this on the website because we've been trying to promote ourselves. We want to get our names known out in the in the US, Canada, rest of the world, etc., etc. So, again, usually if customers order resins from our website, they would have to go through our CS.
Correct.
So this kind of answers this kind
of. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because the nature of these items as well, they are the numbers of breakages that you're going to find for PVC inherently much fewer. So, I mean, if you do have an issue, you would need to go back to the place that you bought it from. Okay.
Just keep hold of your receipt, and just same rules applies to any retailer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Right. Yeah. Right, now it's moving along. Alessio Bucci.
Yo!
How long did it take to develop this statue? Would it be longer, shorter if you made it in polystone?
So, I
think we answered the first question.
Yeah.
Right? The first question we started sometime last January.
It was right after the Las Vegas toy show, so really sort of July is actually when I started. Now, the mold tooling, and let me go a bit more about the process from mold to the final piece, right? So what I want to say about that is, we start with a resin piece actually, because they all start the same. Start with a resin piece that then gets separated into these parts. That then, when we talk about what's the paint, how we're going to do that, that then gets put into these steel molds. Now, after steel molds have been made, we then go ahead and create the tooling. And the tooling typically takes about 45 to 50 days to make it. It's quite a long time. And what that also includes is the fact that after about 35 days, we do what is called the test shot. And the test shot are things like this, okay? Things like this. We just basically, it's basically to see how does the fitting work, because there's so many separate pieces, and that's one of the issues. A lot of factories, not only is it cheaper just to make it in one mold or fewer molds, it's also assembly-wise, it's much easier. Of course, painting, it's not. It's a toss-up between economics, the time for assembly, and the painting.
For example,
and
it's
the
like
quality.
those crane machine, those crane prizes. They usually just come in one simple base and then one whole piece of, like I said, because this is breaking down to 50 pieces. Those prize ones, it reflects the price of the product, reflects the quality of the product.
Sure, of course. So they make this test shot, which is again just saying, does this fit? And always, it never fits perfectly, and that's very normal. And you go through something called the debugging stage, which is usually 10 days to. This actually took a little bit longer because there were so many different parts that didn't quite fit that we had to make the changes on. That it basically allowed for it to be. We took a longer time to do that. So in terms of the length on that, then this is an example of once we're happy with the test shot, we do the FEP sample, which is. This is one of the examples of the things not fitting perfectly, and then it did, and then we had subsequent ones that did, and this is an example of one that did pass. And from here, they then go ahead and paint it, and that's obviously what we got here. So in terms of that, the process of making the steel molds, debugging, creating the separate pieces for making the steel molds takes a long time. 3 months. I would say easily, all of that sort of stuff, not including the prototype development time. But of course the manufacturing time, that's a whole nother ballgame. That's where the difference is. So it's like the slow, the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah, there's a lot of time and preparation spent on the early stages for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Is that the question already
Yeah,
answered for Alessio?
that's right.
Cool. Next question from Stacey Lynn. Was the decision on the character imposed up to you, or did Nintendo decide it? Was the decision based only on pictures that the public had at the time, or did you have enough inside information to have considered other things, like Zelda, for example?
Shout out to Stacey, we already answered that question, so that was kind of going onto that. Yeah, sorry, kind of diverted onto that, but hopefully you got that information. But yeah, definitely we wanted to reflect what little information that we had, and we went with the coolest one. Hopefully you guys agree.
Indeed. Last but not least, Megan Alaskan. Do you guys plan on playing the game?
Absolutely, it is so anticipated. I'm really looking forward to it. The vistas that you can go to, the way it looks, the open sort of worldness of it all.
Definitely.
Really excited about having gone.
I definitely want to play that because I want to see. Because we spent so many months on this pose specifically. You want to go into the game and then see. Ooh. How accurate have we been? Yeah,
it goes beyond that as well. I mean, it goes a bit beyond that as well, in terms of working on it, but also just the anticipation of it being such a long time. So yeah, it's one of the perks of working in this industry, working on this as well. It's when it comes time to actually playing him, you'll be like, hey, did we miss anything? That's what I'm going to be first looking at.
We're definitely not going to miss the launch day because we actually got this out at the same time as a console, and hopefully we can get this.
Sure, but what I mean is, did we miss anything in terms of any of the details that we might not have seen? Well, and then we zoom in and move it around and actually have control of the camera.
Perhaps if we spend more time in the game, we could actually develop the PC line as well in the future as well. Yeah.
The PVC line is indeed here to stay.
Sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Questions done. Time for shout-outs?
Shout-outs. Cat, what is going on? Brett Martin, shout out to the guys over at the Video Game Memorabilia Museum. That's been going for a long time. I remember going there to see some of the stuff way back when I started working on Nintendo projects to see how can I get better, what can we do, the research. They have a look great. That's really great. Megan Aslaskan, shout out to you. Managed to get that question in. Joshua Harmon, big it up. Ricky Underdog Powell, what is going on? Christina Marie, hey, what's going on? Stephen Reed, what is going on, mate? Jessica Castig, always there. Love it.
That's right.
Carly Kadov. Yo. Raphael Laloy. Big it up. Shout out. Peace.
Nice one, guys. Wow, a lot of new names this time.
All new names. That's hopefully
very
new members
interesting,
joining
yeah.
into the club, getting on the right time to get those shout outs.
Hopefully that answers quite a lot of questions for you Zelda fans out there. Even for anyone that's interested in the PVC line, this is like quite an in-depth breakdown, not just on the Breath of the Wild link.
Yeah.
This could be potentially for any future PVC lines. This is how the processes. Hopefully, as time goes along, we can actually explain even more
Absolutely.
in-depth details as well.
Absolutely. Should we have a look at the packaging, Jocks?
Because we've broken down from. We take a step back and actually work our way forward, and
yeah, this is the final
this
piece.
is the final piece that you guys will actually see when the item goes out into the store. Back here.
Yeah, let's probably just move this.
These to one side.
Yeah. To do it in a nice way that doesn't sort of totally.
Yeah, because we're going to set all this back up again and take some nice photo shots.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Are we? We can set it up again. Yeah, just do it like that.
That's it. Absolutely love this packaging. Sandy, who's worked on the packaging, did a fantastic job on that. Really love how it's come out. Collector friendly. It's got a window box on the top. It's got windows that you can see from the sides, both sides actually, and you can see what we've got here. We've got the pattern on the shield. Yeah. It's nice and round to match that. On the top we have the window box, but we also have the shaker symbol on there. We, obviously have some information on the back as well there, and
we have a nice little backdrop inside as well. We can just cut around the sides and have yes, that's what I told you. So yes, there's a nice little backdrop there as well for guys that want to take them out of the box and have them displayed in the background. And also there's going to be a small little brochure inside where you can actually the chance to start earning some points. If you're a new member, just joined our Facebook club, please also sign up to our newsletter on our website. Sign up with a new account. There's going to be 4 extra points you can actually earn every single day. To start off the points, there's going to be 500 points for this piece, and also inside there's going to be a couple of surprises. Hopefully we don't want to spoil it for you, but there's a couple of surprises there with regards to the continuation of the Breath of the Wild collectible line.
Absolutely, and it's really a lovely way to start off this line, to be able to sit back and just go, well, hopefully you guys agree, you're happy with the results. It's been something that we've been working on so hard in the background and kept it quiet for so long.
Yes, that was very hard to keep that quiet because everyone's been asking, are we working on the new Zelda again?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to actually show that out during the Switch announcement as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right after the Switch announcement, we had this mentioned during our Friday Q&A, and that was a very nice surprise as well, to share the excitement and the news with our fans at the same time, to hear their reaction and to get the press involved as well with different media, social medias, YouTubers as well, to help promote this Breath of the Wild link, to see their reactions and their anticipation for the new game that's going to come out when this video launches on the same day, I believe. Yes, the 3rd, I believe. So that's it.
You got any sizes for us, Jocks?
Yes, so this is a straight up 10-inch. I believe
what it says on the box.
What it says on the box, exactly, a 10-inch PVC statue. Exact size, I'm not sure if there's really much else, because from the size from the top of the bow to the bottom of the base is around 10 inches.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. What I wanted to just do, what I remember from before, is the string, as you can see here, it's actually...
Yes.
Elasticated. Now, we had some of the difficulties at the beginning. I just want to talk a bit of some of the details that we did it. If we look at, for example, his chest, you can see the sword. That's kind of sword design on his chest. Originally, we just had it going downwards, but we considered, and Nintendo pointed out, of course, that with the movement in the torso that you can see over here, actually, the movement of the clothing, that sort of movement there, means that the sword actually had a kind of have a little bit of a banana. It doesn't go straight down because it doesn't make sense. So it has to go in line with the torso. Another thing that we had to look into was the fact that this has a bow, but actually if you take the bow off, the string is actually very loosely added. You can see it's quite loose, and it's not so short that it sort of becomes straight. And there's a reason for that. We initially did it so it was just perfectly straight, i.e. it was very taut. And what would happen is when you put it on there, you see it's just about right to go over the fingers and into the groove there to have it a perfectly sort of V shape, as if it is taut, but actually it's quite loose. And the reason why we tested it out before that it was actually pull tight, what would happen is over time the whole hands would be sort of starting to pull upwards because of the tension of the thing. The whole bow, the whole thing would start sort of going upwards, which was unintended. So that's why
he wasn't aiming high.
Right. So all these sort of small things that we had to consider when developing this product, and it was something that we could only really find out until a little bit later on, because you had to make it with the previously short bow sort of string and see after a couple of days going, what's going on here? So that's another thing I wanted to sort of mention. And when you guys really get it, we've talked a lot about the processes about that, but it's just so full of details. We could talk about the details for a long time as well, talking about how each part, you can see how the arrow sort of gets connected together. So the arrowhead, you have this part here, goes into this part here, so you can connect, you see this part here, they're all separated, and this gets added to there. And it's part of having separate pieces that are painted in a way that when you join them up together, that it makes sense. So for example, as you can see, Chocks, you see the brown of the bow and the sort of the whites of the wraps.
Straps,
they connect. As in, before we had it so that we didn't notice until, wait a sec, because we looked at them each individually. So you looked at one piece at one half at a time, and they didn't match. We were like, oh, we thought that they did match. We didn't consider that. So, that piece and that piece, they looked fine on their own, clean lines. Put them together and it didn't make any sense. So there's a lot of things that we had to do and to look and to make sure that they were okay. But definitely it was a very sort of humbling experience to go through this, to put all that effort into it, and hopefully you guys like what you can see here. We'll be really grateful if you guys could support us by picking him up.
Even this alone, just having this a separate piece allows us to add more details in the back of the shield as well, because I've been looking at it from a different angle, the actual full figure. You can actually see much more detail.
Definitely.
From the insides.
I mean, and that's what you talk about. For example, this part here is being connected here. Oops, sorry. The shield, the handle here, we've got here. You've got the handles here. But of course, this part here is what's part is this one? It's the connection to one of these straps here, right? One of the back straps, I believe. And here's an example of something that we didn't think about until Nintendo pointed out to us as well. For example, if you look at this, if you look over here at the straps going across his belt, the belt straps here, actually, you see how it's sort of got a dark brown here and then a light brown there?
Yeah.
You see that light brown there?
Yeah.
And a dark brown there, right? So what actually happened there was we had to make it the consideration that he's wrapped on his belt, it's gone 2 times round it, and then it's too long that he's had to insert it and invert it. Insert and invert.
Yeah.
And on the underside, so it's almost like the front,
underside,
exactly right. The front side is a dark brown, on the underside is a light brown, and so that's why you see it. That's why you see it. No, I mean, it's supposed to be that it's from the front. When you look at it, it's supposed to be like that. So you can imagine that when you see it, it looks like it's light color there and dark color in here.
Yeah.
And that's some of the small sort of attention to details that we put into this piece. And you look at the individual pouches, or you look at how There is his little ears. So his little earrings are there, and his ponytail's got
pieces here as well. You can see
all separate pieces. Because that would have been a nightmare to try and connect them together and then paint them on top of each other would have been just a nightmare. I mean, even the hair has been separated into many different pieces as well. So, you know, all I can say is, Chocks, stick it in the oven, build it. Let's have a look at how you did.
I wonder how many pieces it will take for the next PVC that we're going to make.
Hopefully you guys will be up for some more PVC from us. Hopefully you guys like what you've seen. Chocks, I feel that's a wrap.
Yeah, that's quite an in-depth documentary for this one. Hopefully there's more in the future with regards to PVC, where we can actually show you this step by step, going through the whole process. I definitely look forward to one of those documentaries in the future, and hopefully that's it really. When this video goes up on a Friday, hopefully you guys will be enjoying the Breath of the Wild game, and hopefully you've pre-ordered this statue as well, and hopefully that comes on a little bit before this video goes live, or right after, a couple of days after the video goes live. And for the rest of the world that are still waiting for their statue, this Breath of the Wild statue is going to come out a little bit shortly after, maybe a couple of weeks.
May.
April, May time.
May time.
So that's it really. If you haven't joined our Collectors Club, make sure you go to our First for Figures official Collectors Club on Facebook. If you have Instagram, make sure you go to Instagram, or if you prefer Twitter, we have a Twitter as well. And
do make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, you're watching YouTube, so hopefully give us a thumbs up. Set the notification on as well in the top left, top right corner, and I believe that's it really. We're going to be active quite a lot on YouTube. We're going to make some more videos for you every week, and every single week hopefully. Yeah,
absolutely.
But there's definitely a Friday Q&A every single week, so make sure you come and say hello to us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm your host Alex,
and I'm Chuckles. Right.
That's another one.
Awesome.
Peace.
Laters.